Welcome to Unity. Our reading today is from the book Everyday Spiritual Practice, our book of the month, which I'm sure you have all read cover to cover by now. Good work. I am on page 226. Time before time. Actually, let me preface this. The author of this essay is quoting from an old story, an old Hebrew or Jewish story. Time before time, when the world was young, two brothers shared a field and a mill. Each night, they divided the grain that they had grown together evenly. One brother lived alone, and the other had a large family. Now, the single brother thought to himself one day, "It isn't really fair that we divide the grain evenly. I have only myself to care for, but my brother has children to feed." So each night, he secretly took some of his grain and put it in his brother's granary. But the married brother said to himself one day, "It isn't fair that we divide the grain evenly, because I have children to provide for me in my old age, but my brother does not." So he began every night to take some of his grain and put it in his brother's granary. Then one night, they met each other halfway between their two houses, and they realized what had been happening. And then, what could they do but embrace each other in love? The legend is that God witnessed this meeting and proclaimed, "This is a holy place, and here shall my temple be built." Indeed, if we understand that everyone is brother and sister to us, then we will always want to pour some of our grain into the granary of the world. And when we do, and where we do, that is a holy place. I'm going to read through today's affirmation, and then I'll invite you to stand and join me. I walk in the easy awareness of my inner being, infinite source. I practice the awareness of this presence and am guided by its wisdom and nourished by its love. My spiritual practice is effortless and fulfilling and maintains and sustains me with every breath. And so it is. Please stand and join me with conviction. I walk in the easy awareness of my inner being, infinite source. I practice the awareness of this presence and am guided by its wisdom and nourished by its love. My spiritual practice is effortless and fulfilling and maintains and sustains me with every breath. And so it is. That's our Jamie. And let me just ask you something. Has the God of her heart shown her a way to shine? Yes. It really occurred to me while you were singing up here, Jamie, that she's the walking evidence of what she just sang. And if I may, because she came to me and she said, "You know what I'd really like to do? I think I'd like to sing." And this was like a year ago, right? And look at her. I'm so grateful because, I know that one of the ways that Jamie has become as proficient as she is now is what? Practice. Hello. She didn't kind of say, I think what I really want to do is sing and then get up here and sing that song that way, did she? She's been practicing, and I'm aware of that, and she's been studying, and she's been working, and she's been doing her spiritual work such that she can stand up here and allow the God of her being to shine and bless us. And isn't that the whole lesson? When we allow the God of our own being to shine, it automatically blesses others. And today we're here to talk about this idea that you cannot outgive God, but you sure can try. You can try real hard. And I guarantee you that as we try, as we do our very best to outgive the divine, those around us will be blessed. And you know what? Because of the cyclical nature of things, we are also blessed. Is it a blessing for you to stand in front of us and sing, see? Here it is. It's happening right here. All month long, we are talking about in the spirit of devotion. We are talking about being devoted to something greater than we are and using our spiritual practice to being devoted to our spiritual practice to call us into a greater yet to be, so that we can be a blessing to ourselves and to others, and wait a minute, maybe even a blessing to the world. Take a breath with me. Have you ever been blessed by anybody? Have you ever felt moved by something someone said or did? See, allowing the God of our own being to shine forth through us is what is the source of the blessing. And that's a beautiful idea, isn't it? Now, in our little book today, we had two brothers who were a source of blessing to one another, right? How about a beautiful story, isn't it? The thing that really stood out for me about this story is they met in the middle. And they saw one another with love, and they saw how they had been unknowingly blessing one another. And God called that place a holy place, a sacred place, a holy place. And so where we give is a holy place. And when we give is a holy moment. I think this is part of why in Unity and New Thought in general, we have a very broad idea of what's sacred, don't we? And I think part of that is because we understand that which is given from the heart is automatically holy and sacred. It doesn't have to have the stamp of divine approval on it. It actually is sacred. Now, I do also want to share with you from the New Testament. Yes, the New Testament. The book of Luke, chapter 6, verse 37-38. Are you ready? Buckle up. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Have you ever felt judged or condemned? Where are you judging and condemning? Is a really good question to ask yourself, but that's another sermon. Pardon, and you will be pardoned. Give, and gifts will be given you. Good measure pressed down and shaken down and running over will be poured into your lap. For whatever measure you deal out to others will be dealt to you in turn. Now we have these two brothers giving, full out, pressed down, overflowing good. It's being measured out to them as they are measuring out to one another. And you know what is really cool? Is nobody's storehouse, nobody's granary in that story is ever going to be empty, is it? Because they're just supporting one another and giving and supporting and giving. It's a beautiful idea. But I want you to notice one word in here. Give, and it will be given to you. What is it? It is what you give. Are you giving joy? Are you giving love? Are you giving time? Are you giving energy? Whatever that it is, joy, love, time, energy, is given to you. And even more importantly than that is what is the consciousness with which we are giving. Because I can give my love begrudgingly, or in an attempt to control you. I can give my time in an attempt to manipulate you and get what I want. But just as important as if I give and what I give is the consciousness in which I give. Where am I giving from? And I think a really great way to answer this question is, from where does God give? From where does God give? Does God give from a place of wanting to control me? Does God give from a place of trying to get something from me? Does God give out of a fear that I won't pay attention to it? No, of course not. God gives freely and abundantly of its own nature. Incessantly. We can't get away from it. We try to get away from it, don't we? We try to put up the barriers and the walls with our false beliefs and our false ideas, and by golly, that next breath just keeps on coming. God gives. Can we give with the same consciousness that we have been given from? That's a bad sentence, but you know what I mean. Can we give, pressed down, and I think of this image. At the time that this New Testament, not at the time it was written, but the time it's talking about, people didn't have like grocery bags. They had, your skirt or something, and someone would, and you could get your grain when you went to the market. You could get your grain, and they would fill, your pouch or your skirt or your robe. And actually, in the original Greek, for that chapter, it's not the good into your lap; it's the good into your robe. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so we always have to think about the times that these things were written. And imagine, I was just doing some stuff with rice last night, and you can measure it, and then you can press it down, right? And then it'll spill over, and there's more of it. So you see, it's not just given to us. Pressed down, spilling over. And am I given big scoopfuls, or am I withholding? Am I given a little bit? Just enough so that I can feel okay about myself. Just enough so that you'll like me, but not so much that it feels unsafe to me. Spilling over and remembering that we give as we receive. But let me tell you about the paradox here. It is true that we give as we receive. And that has actually caused many of us to move into an idea that, well, if I want to receive, I should give. That's true. And do you see the challenge with that? Because the consciousness we give from is as important as whether we give. And if the consciousness I am giving from is, I want to get, I'm giving from a consciousness of not having. I don't have enough. So I'm going to give so I can get some. Make sense? And have you heard teachers talk about, well, if you want to give, right? And I'm not saying that is wrong. I'm just saying make sure. Consciousness is everything, you guys, right? Consciousness is cause. That's the core of our teaching. There's one thing happening. A creative process is eternally happening. And our experience of life starts in consciousness. Am I giving from a consciousness of bounty and beauty as God has given to me with the same sense of freedom and ease and grace? Or am I giving because I want to get something? How you doing? We simply give. We're called to simply give. Because we are here to duplicate the nature of Spirit of God here on earth. We give not to get. We give because God gives. Let us be more God-like. Let us be more giving. Breathing with me. Allowing, opening. And let's ask a few more questions about giving. How about what should we give? Well, keeping aware of the fact that where we give from is as important as what we give, at the same time, we still want to give what we want to receive. Does that make sense? Who's feeling a little short on love in their lives right now? Give some love. Not because you feel empty of love, but because God loves. There's an idea. How about attention? Do you ever think, I just want my spouse, my partner, my somebody, my boss, my whoever to just pay attention to me a little bit? Yeah? Give somebody some attention. Give someone that you love some attention. Or give someone that you don't love. That's even a better idea. Some attention. Are you wanting to receive forgiveness? Are you willing to be a forgiver? That's actually that's actually in one of the translations of this book of Luke. In this translation, it says, condemn are you will be. In this version, it says, pardon and you will be pardoned, right? But in some of the other versions of the New Testament, it says, forgive and you will be forgiven. See, we want to be forgiven, but we don't want to be forgivers. What? How's that? That's not going to work. Whatever you're holding against someone is stopping the energy of the divine flow and creating an atmosphere of lack and need. Become a forgiver. Forgive so that you can be forgiven. And because that presence that we call God automatically forgives. You think God's holding a grudge against you for something you did when you were 8? I don't think so. Because that's not the way the universe works. God is infinite love. What did our brothers do? They gave. They were concerned for each other's welfare. They loved one another. And they gave from that place of love to ensure that each would thrive. What a lovely idea. So what should we give? We should give what we want to receive, but from a consciousness that it is already ours. From a consciousness that all that we could possibly want has already been given to us. You know what to give now? Yeah, starting to stir an idea in your heart. Oh, you know what I need to give more of? Give it a try, see what happens. Now, where should you give? Where we give is the holy place. It's the holy moment, yes? So we should give to the source of our holiness, if you will. We should give to where our hearts are fed. Where is your heart fed? Are you giving there? Interesting, isn't it? Do you suppose those two brothers, their hearts fed one another? I think they probably did. And they gave to each other. They were a source of loving good. Their hearts were fed by one another. Perhaps we should give to our communities. You know, we have this really cool community association where we live. It's like a housing thing, and there's a what do they call that thing? Yeah, whatever. It's like, we all pay money. Anyway, you know what I mean. An association, thank you. And here's what's really cool. Our community has a community garden. And it's beautiful. And, we live, it's a neighborhood where there's like really big houses on little tiny lots, right? And so in order to kind of create an atmosphere of community, there's 2 lots that didn't have houses built on them and where kids can run and play. And then there's this lot in the back that is a community garden. And people just go down there and garden. And when we first moved there, I was like, I would never do that. I have enough trouble keeping my own yard in shape. You know what I mean? It's like that I would actually spend time going down to a community garden and working in there. Now, the truth is I'm not a gardener. I'm not going to do that. But it's such lovely evidence that there are people in our neighborhood who are willing to give their time. And our neighborhood won a First in the Nation award, or was it second? First or second in the Nation award for community building in the neighborhood. And it was, the garden and the play areas and the way that they do community things, like they redid one of the play areas. Everybody got together 6 or 8 months ago and redid one of the play areas. And so people are giving to their own community, a place that feeds them, a place that moves their hearts. And they're making their community a better place by doing that. And for me, my benefit is I get to go walk through the garden and enjoy all the little peas and the things that are coming up, and there's all these sprouts and green things. And I am blessed by people's willingness to spend time in the community garden. And then I go and I give in my way. We all have a way that we can give that transforms lives and makes the world a better place. We all have a place that we can give that transforms lives and makes the world a better place. And I want to ask you to consider if unity is a place where you are fed. And if it is, this is a place where you can give. The source of our spiritual good, as Edwene Gaines says. Yes? How many of you know Edwene? She's awesome. So we give to the source of our spiritual good. And let me tell you something. We don't give because God wants us to give money to the church. That's not it. God doesn't need your money. Unity needs your money. Right? Because we got a building and we have staff and we have musicians and we have things that we do that are a source of your spiritual good. And all of that costs money. And we are so abundantly and richly supported. And I'm so grateful for our community that does support us. So give yourself some love for that. And we give with good measure, pressed down, spilling over to support the source of our spiritual inspiration. And we give today. I've been thinking so much about this lately. Do you guys know in June it's 60 years since our founding in June? 60 years. Isn't that fun to know? Yeah, about the time I was born. Some people with big vision were getting together and they were putting their money together because they had a vision that we would be sitting here in 60 years having our spiritual food, getting our spiritual food, whatever it is. They had a big enough vision to plant the seeds back then, and we are reaping what they sowed. And how blessed are we? And are we willing to sow right now for 60 years in the future so that this center can continue to be a blessing to those who are not here yet? Only because it has been a source of our spiritual good, and only because God gives. And we duplicate the nature of God here on planet Earth. Are we willing to give others access to what has already blessed us? So we give our money, yes. We give our time. We give our gifts in ways that bless people and make the world a better place. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to give. So keeping in mind that where we give is the holy place, the place of the temple, right? And remember, the temple is where we are spiritually nourished, where we receive our spiritual food. And what a beautiful opportunity for us to open our hearts and our minds and our wallets to receive more. And what a beautiful thing it is. We live in a world that is, it's a world of money, right? We live in a world of money. You basically have to have at least some money to live in our culture, in the West, yes? But we also live in a world of service. We serve here in our spiritual center. We serve in the greater community. We make the world a better place through our willingness to give. So we've talked about what to give. We've talked about where to give. Let's kind of mush together when to give and how much to give. often and a lot. Give often and give a lot. Pressed down, spilling over, often. You see, if we are here to duplicate the nature of God in the world, let's follow God's giving example. How often does God give us a sunrise? Pretty much every day. I was driving in this morning. Did you see the daffodils? How often do the daffodils come? Every year. It's pretty predictable. How often do we get a sunset? Every day. How often do we get a high tide? Twice a day. How often do we get a low tide? See, it's all cyclical. We live in a cyclical universe, don't we? Follow God's example. Give regularly. Just like the tide. Just like the sun. Just like your breath. How often do you get a breath? Somewhere, depending on how you're doing. Somewhere 50 to 80 a minute. Regular, predictable. We are given our breath. Regular, predictable. Often and a lot. And this is the nature of abundance. It simply flows. It simply flows. And it's so interesting how we tend to, there's not enough. There's not enough. I couldn't possibly give. There's not enough. Well, I invite you to try it and see. Try it and see. For the measure with which we give is the measure with which we receive. And even more importantly, giving with that consciousness of freedom and love and provision and ease and grace and beauty. Given from that consciousness of knowing that I give because God gives. I give because I love my brother and I love my sister. And I know that wherever and whenever I give, I am creating the holy temple. I am creating the sacred space, the holy place, where God can show up more and more fully. And what a beautiful idea that is. And I'm so grateful to live in a universe that operates that way. And so this month, as we are talking about in the spirit of devotion, we're talking about being devoted to something greater than we are talking about the notion of being committed to loving, to feeling an enthusiasm for something greater than we are, the infinite mind and heart of God. Let us give from the infinite mind and heart of God. And just see if you can't outgive God. Just try it. Just see how it goes. And let's turn within and seal this message. As we take this opportunity to recognize one power, one presence, one mind, one heart. It is the power and the presence, the mind, the heart from which all things have sprung. It is that to which all things return. We cannot be separate from its nature. We are of its name. We are us. It is all of us. And I declare and I know right now that we simply open our hearts, our very souls, to a recognition of the giving nature of God. We recognize that God gives freely, that God gives effortlessly, that God gives incessantly, and that God gives from the very heart of love. We just say yes to the heart of love that is blooming inside ourselves. We know that this one life is right where we are, and we drop away anything that might be blocking expression. We release any old ideas of lack, limitation, or it's hard to give. We simply let it go into the nothingness from which it came and step into the very light of God. And here shines the truth. Here shines the oneness of all things. I do give thanks that God is good, that God is gracious, that something wonderful is happening in every giving moment. And so we simply say yes to being cheerful, abundant, joy-filled givers. And we say yes to being cheerful, abundant, joy-filled receivers as we give others the opportunity to give. I do know that as we anchor more and more fully in this divine spiritual practice, God shines forth as our lives more and more fully, and we are a blessing and we are blessed. And so I give thanks. I know that we leave this place today with bigger and greater and fuller and easier and more gracious ideas of how, where, when, and how much to give. And we see ourselves guided and lifted and inspired in every moment. And so I do give thanks. I give thanks for the inspiration. I give thanks for the holy moment. I give thanks that we are created in the image and likeness of that which gives. And so I close this message with a grateful, grateful heart. And so it is. Amen.